All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at a massive shift happening in education down in Mexico, and it's all focused on a really unique and totally vital part of their school system. We're not just talking about new textbooks or lesson plans here. This is about completely redrawing the map for how teachers teach and students learn in some of the most diverse classrooms you can even imagine.
So here's how we're going to break this story down. First, we need to understand the heart of rural education, what these schools really are. Then we'll see how teachers started challenging everything they thought they knew. That leads us to how they're building a living curriculum. And finally, we'll look at the cycle that keeps it all going and make sure this education truly belongs to the community.
Okay, so what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about Mexico's multigrade schools. And the first thing you have to get is that these are not just mini versions of big city schools. No way. In many places, they are the absolute bedrock of rural life.
And get this, the sheer scale is kind of mind-blowing. Nearly half, think about that for a second, nearly half of all basic schools in Mexico are multigrade schools. That number alone tells you just how crucial they are to the entire country.
You know, for a lot of these communities, the school isn't just a school. It's the town hall, it's the community center, it's the one constant institutional presence they have. This creates this incredible bond, but it also really shines a spotlight on the huge challenge of trying to force a standardized, one-size-fits-all system onto such a unique reality.
So that brings us to the core problem, right? You've got one teacher with kids of all different ages, all different grade levels, all learning in the same room. How on earth is a single, rigid national curriculum supposed to work there? Well, spoiler alert, it doesn't. And the first real step to changing things was to challenge the way everyone was even thinking about the problem. And this right here is the fundamental conflict. It's like you've been given an old, outdated map. That's the single, rigid national curriculum. But the actual terrain you're trying to navigate, it's this incredibly complex, dynamic, and diverse classroom. The map just doesn't match the territory. It's as simple as that. So to even begin to navigate this new terrain, a whole new philosophy was needed. It starts with this concept of la reality, or reality. The idea is to stop seeing reality as some static problem you have to solve. Instead, you see it for what it is, a dynamic, constantly changing situation that you first have to really deeply understand. And what stops us from seeing that reality? Well, that's where las certezas, or certainties, come in. You can think of these as mental roadblocks. There are preconceived notions, our biases, the things we just assume are true without question. They put this static frame around a dynamic situation, and they stop us from seeing what's really going on.
Now, here is a perfect, real-world example of one of those certezas that teachers themselves brought up. There just isn't enough time, right? It feels like a fact. It feels like this fundamental, unchangeable law of physics in a multi-grade classroom. It's so easy to just accept it and move on. But this is where everything changes. Instead of just accepting that certainty, this new approach encourages teachers to problematize it, to really dig in and ask, is time really the problem here? Or is it just a symptom of something much deeper? And just look at what happens when they start asking those deeper questions. Suddenly, it's not about the clock anymore. It's about, wait, how are we designing our lessons? Could we group kids differently? Are we really using peer-to-peer learning? What about the resources right here in our own community? This whole process turns the problem from some external thing they can't control into an internal opportunity to innovate. Okay, so you've torn down those old, unhelpful certainties. Now what? What do you build in their place? Well, this brings us to the solution. A flexible, dynamic process where the teacher is no longer just a deliverer of content, but a co-designer of a curriculum that actually fits their classroom, their students. Here's how it works, pretty much in 4 steps. You start with the national curriculum, the programa sintético, but, and this is key, it's seen as a starting point, not a rigid script. Then, teachers go through a co-design process where they create their school's own custom curriculum, the programa analítico. And finally, that translates into the plano didáctico, the actual day-to-day activities and projects in the classroom.
What this means is that the school's curriculum, the programa analítico, isn't some dusty document you write once and stick in a binder. No, it's treated like a living, breathing guide. It's something that's constantly being looked at, tweaked, and even rebuilt based on what's actually working with the kids.
Now, creating this living curriculum is a huge step, but it's really just the beginning.
To make sure all this amazing work sticks and keeps getting better, there's a whole process for continuous improvement baked right in. You can think of it like a compass that helps everyone stay on course.
They call it the Proceso de Mejora Continua, or PMC, and it's this really practical 5-phase cycle. You start by diagnosing the real issues, and you do it with the community. Then you plan realistic goals. You put them into action, you monitor how things are going, and then this part is absolutely critical. You communicate the results back to everyone. That builds shared ownership, and it kicks off the whole cycle all over again.
And this whole framework really gets to the heart of the matter. It empowers teachers and communities to be in the driver's seat of their own improvement. The goal here isn't just to check some boxes for an administrator. It's about creating real, lasting change that grows from the ground up, not handed down from the top.
So let's just pull back for a second and look at the big picture. Why does this all matter so much? What does shifting from a rigid, top-down model to one that's truly rooted in its community actually accomplish? Well, it's a fundamental shift in what we value. It honors teachers as true professionals with expertise and autonomy. It values local knowledge, the community's own wisdom, their saberes. And ultimately, it helps create a system that's more democratic, more equitable, an education that is genuinely public, inclusive, and built on collaboration.
There's a quote from the source material that just captures the spirit of this so perfectly. The goal is to make every single class an act of rootedness and transformation, rooted in the community and transformative for the students. It's just beautiful. So I want to leave you with this thought, because this isn't just a story about schools in rural Mexico. It's a powerful idea about what learning can be. Seriously, take a moment and think. If the curriculum at your local school, or a school you know, was truly built from the ground up around the reality of your community, what would be different? What do you think would change?